Tonight, I want to take you somewhere extraordinary, somewhere that exists all around you right now, yet remains invisible to your conscious awareness most of the time. I want to take you into the realm of light itself, into a possibility so profound that it might fundamentally reshape how you understand everything you've ever seen, touched, or experienced. What if I told you that as you lie here listening to my voice, as you feel the weight of your blanket and the softness of your pillow, that all of these sensations, all of this apparent solidity, might be nothing more than patterns of light interacting in ways we're only beginning to understand? It's a question that might sound strange at first, something you could easily dismiss as the kind of abstract philosophical musing that has no bearing on your everyday life. But the more we look at it, the more quietly intriguing it becomes. What if light is not just something that illuminates the world, but is the very fabric from which everything in the universe is woven? What if those photons streaming from distant stars, those same particles of light that have traveled for millions of years to reach your eyes when you look up at the night sky, what if they're not just messengers carrying information about the cosmos, but are themselves the fundamental building blocks of all reality? As you settle in for this journey tonight, wherever you are in the world, I'm curious about where you're listening from. Is it late at night where you are, or perhaps you're using this as an afternoon meditation? What time does your clock show right now? I love knowing that people from all corners of our planet are joining me in these explorations of the universe's deepest mysteries. If you find yourself drawn into these cosmic contemplations, if these journeys into the nature of reality help you drift peacefully into sleep while expanding your sense of wonder, I gently invite you to subscribe or follow along for more of these nocturnal adventures into the heart of existence. There's something beautifully connecting about knowing that others out there are pondering these same profound questions as they drift off to sleep. Tonight, we're going to explore together, you and I, this remarkable possibility that everything we call matter, everything we think of as solid and permanent, might actually be nothing more than light behaving in particular ways. It's an idea that emerges not from wild speculation but from the deepest insights of modern physics, from equations that describe our universe with stunning precision, yet point toward a reality far stranger than our everyday experience would suggest. Think about the room around you right now, the walls that seem so solid, the device you're using to listen to this, your own body lying there in comfort. We experience these things as having substance, as being made of stuff that's fundamentally different from the light streaming through your window or glowing from your screen. But what if this distinction between matter and light is merely an illusion created by our limited human senses? What if, at the deepest level of reality, there is no difference at all? This isn't a new idea, though it's one that's gaining new support from cutting-edge physics. Ancient philosophers and mystics have long suggested that the physical world might be less solid than it appears, but now, armed with particle accelerators and quantum theory, with telescopes that can peer back to the beginning of time, and microscopes that can glimpse individual atoms, we're discovering that these ancient intuitions might have been more accurate than anyone imagined. Let me take you first into the cosmic context of light, into the vast cathedral of space where photons have been traveling since the universe was young. Right now, as you lie there listening, your body is being traversed by countless particles of light. Some of them have been traveling for mere minutes from the lamp in your room or the screen of your device. Others have been journeying for 8 minutes from our sun, carrying the warmth that heated our planet today. But still others, and this is where it becomes truly magnificent, have been traveling for billions of years, carrying information from the very edge of the observable universe. These ancient photons, these particles of light that have crossed unimaginable distances, they pass through you constantly. They don't interact with the atoms of your body in any noticeable way. They simply continue on their journey, perhaps to be absorbed by a rock on the other side of the Earth, or to continue onward into the depths of space. But here's where our question becomes particularly intriguing. If you're constantly bathed in this ocean of light, constantly interpenetrated by these electromagnetic waves and particles, where exactly is the boundary between you and the light? Where does the light end and you begin? In our everyday experience, this seems like a simple question to answer. Light is out there, and we are here. Light illuminates objects, and we see them. But physics tells us something far more interesting. When you see anything at all, what's actually happening is that photons are being absorbed by specialized cells in your retina. These photons, these packets of electromagnetic energy, literally become part of you for a moment. They transfer their energy to electrons in your eye, setting off a cascade of electrical signals that your brain interprets as vision. In that moment of seeing, the boundary between you and light dissolves completely. But let's go deeper still. What exactly are you made of? If we zoom in past the level of cells, past molecules, down to atoms themselves, what do we find? We find mostly empty space. The classic image of an atom as a miniature solar system with electrons orbiting a nucleus is misleading in many ways, but it does capture one essential truth. Atoms are mostly nothing. If the nucleus of an atom were the size of a marble in the center of a football stadium, the electrons would be like specks of dust in the outer seats. Everything in between would be empty space. Except it's not really empty, is it? This space is filled with electromagnetic fields, with the constant exchange of virtual photons that create the forces holding the atom together. When we say an electron orbits a nucleus, what we really mean is that there's a standing wave of probability, a pattern in the electromagnetic field that we interpret as a particle. The electron itself might be nothing more than a particular configuration of the electromagnetic field, a kind of knot or twist in the fabric of light itself. This is where quantum field theory, our most successful theory of physical reality, starts to paint a picture that aligns remarkably with our central question tonight. According to this theory, what we call particles are really just excitations in underlying fields. An electron is an excitation in the electron field, a quark is an excitation in the quark field, and a photon is an excitation in the electromagnetic field. But here's the fascinating part. All of these fields are constantly interacting with each other through the exchange of virtual particles, and the vast majority of these virtual particles are photons. Think about what this means for a moment. The forces that hold atoms together, the forces that bind atoms into molecules, the forces that give matter its apparent solidity, all of these are mediated by the electromagnetic field, by the constant exchange of virtual photons. When you touch something and feel its solidity, what you're really experiencing is the electromagnetic repulsion between the electrons in your hand and the electrons in the object. You never actually touch anything in the conventional sense. Instead, you experience the interaction of electromagnetic fields, the dance of light at scales too small to see. Even mass itself, that most fundamental property of matter, might emerge from interactions with light. The Higgs field, which gives particles their mass, interacts with particles through the exchange of bosons, which are cousins to photons in the family of force-carrying particles. And when we accelerate particles to high energies in our particle colliders, we can literally convert energy, pure electromagnetic energy, into matter. We can create electrons and positrons, protons and antiprotons, from nothing but concentrated light. This is exactly what happened in the first moments after the Big Bang. The universe was so hot, so dense with energy, that matter and antimatter were constantly being created and destroyed in a sea of light. As the universe cooled, some of this energy condensed into the particles we see today, but the process was merely light, taking on a different form, organizing itself into standing waves and stable patterns that we experience as matter. The distinction between matter and light becomes even more blurred when we consider the wave-particle duality that lies at the heart of quantum mechanics. We've known for over a century that light behaves sometimes like a wave and sometimes like a particle. But what's less commonly understood is that matter exhibits exactly the same duality. Electrons can interfere with themselves like waves. Atoms can be diffracted through gratings. Even large molecules have been shown to exhibit wave-like properties under the right conditions. This suggests that the difference between matter and light might be more about degree than about fundamental nature. Light moves at the speed of light and has no rest mass. Matter moves slower than light and has rest mass. But both are excitations in quantum fields, both exhibit wave-particle duality, and both are, at the deepest level, manifestations of energy organizing itself according to the laws of physics. Consider what Einstein's famous equation, E mc2, really tells us. It says that mass and energy are interchangeable, that they're different forms of the same fundamental quantity. And what is light? Light is pure energy, electromagnetic energy propagating through space. If matter is just energy in a different form, and light is energy in its purest form, then perhaps matter is simply light that has been slowed down, confined, twisted into stable patterns that persist through time. This idea becomes even more compelling when we look at what happens at the event horizon of a black hole. There, the gravitational field becomes so strong that space and time themselves become distorted beyond recognition. And what happens to matter that falls into a black hole? According to our best theories, it gets compressed to a point, a singularity where the conventional distinctions between matter, energy, space, and time cease to have meaning. But black holes also radiate. They give off Hawking radiation, which is essentially light. Matter goes in, light comes out, suggesting once again that the distinction between the two might be more fluid than we imagine. Let's pause here for a moment and really feel the implications of what we're exploring. Look around your room, or simply imagine it if your eyes are closed. Everything you see, the walls, the furniture, the air itself, all of it might be nothing more than patterns of light, electromagnetic energy organized into stable, self-sustaining configurations. The photons from your lamp that seem to bounce off objects and into your eyes might not be bouncing off anything solid at all, but rather interacting with other patterns of light, creating the interference patterns that we interpret as colors and shapes and textures. Your own body, this vessel that seems so solid and separate from the world around it, might be just a particularly complex and stable pattern of electromagnetic energy, a standing wave in the ocean of light that fills the universe. When you move, you're not moving through space so much as you're propagating a pattern through the electromagnetic field, like a wave moving across water. The water doesn't actually travel with the wave. It just moves up and down as the wave passes. Similarly, the fundamental fields that make up reality might simply be oscillating in place as the pattern that is you propagates through them. This perspective radically changes how we might think about consciousness and experience. If everything is light, then consciousness might be a particular way that light organizes itself, a specific pattern of electromagnetic activity that gives rise to subjective experience. The electrical signals in your brain, the synaptic firings that correlate with thoughts and feelings, these are all electromagnetic phenomena. Your thoughts, in a very real sense, are patterns of light, complex interference patterns in the electromagnetic field that fills your skull. When you remember something, you're recreating a pattern of light that was laid down in the past. When you imagine something, you're creating new patterns, new configurations of electromagnetic energy that didn't exist before. And when you perceive the world around you, you're not so much observing something separate from yourself, as you're participating in a vast dance of light, with patterns from the external world interfacing with and modifying the patterns within your brain. The boundary between self and world, between observer and observed, begins to dissolve when we think about reality in this way. If everything is light, then you're not separate from the universe, but are instead a particular pattern within it, a unique configuration of the same fundamental energy that makes up stars and planets, atoms, and empty space. You're the universe experiencing itself subjectively, light contemplating light, energy organized in such a way that it can wonder about its own nature. This brings us to some of the most cutting-edge ideas in theoretical physics, ideas that suggest reality might be even more fundamentally based on light than we've discussed so far. Some theories propose that space and time themselves might emerge from more fundamental structures, and these structures might be inherently light-like in nature. In loop quantum gravity, for instance, space is made up of tiny loops of gravitational field, and these loops are connected by edges that behave very much like rays of light. In string theory, the fundamental constituents of reality are tiny vibrating strings, and the different modes of vibration give rise to different particles. But what are these strings made of? The theory doesn't really say, but they might be thought of as pure energy, as vibrations in the fundamental fabric of reality itself. And what is a vibration but a wave? And what is electromagnetic radiation but a wave of electric and magnetic fields propagating through space? Even more intriguingly, some physicists have proposed that the universe might be holographic in nature, that all the information needed to describe a volume of space can be encoded on its boundary, like a hologram encodes three-dimensional information on a two-dimensional surface. And how are holograms created? With light, with interference patterns of light that contain information about three-dimensional objects. If the universe is holographic, then light might not just be the only thing that exists. It might be the fundamental language in which reality is written. Let's bring this back to your immediate experience. As you lie there, perhaps growing drowsy, feeling the weight of your body against the bed, notice how even these sensations of pressure and warmth can be understood as electromagnetic phenomena. The feeling of pressure comes from the electromagnetic repulsion between atoms. The sensation of warmth comes from infrared radiation, from light at wavelengths just beyond what your eyes can see. Even the chemical processes that create the feeling of drowsiness in your brain are fundamentally electromagnetic, involving the movement of charged particles, the forming and breaking of electromagnetic bonds. Every breath you take involves the electromagnetic bonding between oxygen molecules and hemoglobin in your blood. Every heartbeat is triggered by electrical signals, by flows of charged ions that create electromagnetic fields. Your entire metabolism, the process by which you extract energy from food and use it to maintain your body, is fundamentally about moving electrons around, about harnessing the electromagnetic energy stored in chemical bonds. We tend to think of ourselves as biological beings, as collections of cells and organs and systems. But underneath all of that biology is chemistry, and underneath all of that chemistry is physics, and at the base of physics, we find fields and forces, energy and information, all of it describable in terms of electromagnetic phenomena, in terms of light interacting with itself in incredibly complex and beautiful patterns. This isn't to diminish the reality of your experience or to suggest that consciousness is nothing but electrical signals. Rather, it's to expand our understanding of what light might be capable of. If light can organize itself into atoms and molecules, into cells and organisms, into brains capable of thought and feeling, then light is far more than just illumination. It's the fundamental creative principle of the universe, the basic substance from which all complexity emerges. Think about the journey of a single photon created in the core of a star. It might take millions of years for that photon to work its way from the stellar core to the surface, bouncing between atoms, being absorbed and re-emitted countless times. When it finally escapes into space, it travels at the speed of light across vast distances, perhaps for billions of years, until it encounters something, perhaps a molecule in your retina, where it deposits its energy and ceases to exist as a separate entity. But does it really cease to exist, or does it simply transform? The energy of that photon becomes part of you, contributing to the electrical signal that creates vision, to the pattern of neural activity that generates conscious experience. In a sense, that ancient starlight becomes part of your thoughts, part of your awareness. You are quite literally made of star stuff, but more specifically, you're made of light, of electromagnetic energy that has been cycling through various forms since the beginning of time. This cosmic recycling of light continues constantly. The atoms in your body are temporary arrangements, patterns that persist for a while, before dissolving and reforming into new patterns. The carbon atoms in your DNA might once have been part of a tree, which captured them from the air using the energy of sunlight. Before that, they might have been part of a rock, or dissolved in the ocean, or floating in the atmosphere. And before any of that, they were forged in the heart of a dying star, where the electromagnetic forces were strong enough to overcome nuclear repulsion and fuse lighter elements into heavier ones. Every atom heavier than hydrogen in your body was created in a star, in a cosmic furnace where light energy was concentrated enough to build matter. And when those stars died, when they exploded in supernovas or slowly shed their outer layers, they scattered these atoms into space, where they eventually coalesced into new stars, planets, and ultimately into you. You're not just made of star stuff. You are made of light that has been on an incredible journey through space and time. The question we're exploring tonight, whether light is the only thing that actually exists, touches on some of the deepest mysteries in physics. What is the nature of dark matter and dark energy, which seem to make up most of the universe, but don't interact with light in ways we can easily detect? If everything is fundamentally electromagnetic, how do we account for these dark components of reality? One possibility is that dark matter and dark energy represent different phases or configurations of the electromagnetic field that we haven't yet learned to recognize. Just as water can exist as ice, liquid, or vapor, perhaps electromagnetic energy can exist in forms that don't interact with ordinary light in familiar ways. Or perhaps these dark components are related to the structure of space itself, to the way that electromagnetic fields curve and twist space-time. Another deep mystery is the nature of gravity. Unlike the other fundamental forces, gravity hasn't yet been successfully described in terms of quantum field theory. We don't have a confirmed theory of quantum gravity, of how gravity works at the smallest scales. But many of the proposed theories suggest that gravity too might be emergent, that it might arise from more fundamental interactions that could ultimately be electromagnetic in nature. Some theories propose that gravity is not a fundamental force at all, but rather an entropic force, a statistical tendency that emerges from the behavior of more fundamental constituents. And what might these constituents be? Perhaps they're related to the quantum vacuum, to the sea of virtual photons and other virtual particles that fill apparently empty space. The energy of this quantum vacuum is enormous, and if gravity emerges from it, then gravity too might ultimately be a phenomenon of light. As we contemplate these possibilities, it's natural to feel a sense of vertigo, a kind of conceptual dissolving of everything we thought was solid and separate. If everything is light, if the distinctions we make between matter and energy, between self and world, between one object and another, are merely convenient approximations that break down at a deeper level, then what does this mean for how we understand ourselves and our place in the universe? Perhaps it means that we're far more connected to everything around us than we usually realize. If you and I and everyone else are patterns in the same electromagnetic field, then we're not truly separate beings, but rather different expressions of the same underlying reality. When you look at another person, you're not seeing something fundamentally other than yourself, but rather another pattern of light, another way that the universe has organized electromagnetic energy into consciousness. This interconnectedness extends beyond just human beings. Every atom in your body is constantly exchanging photons with every other atom, not just in your body but throughout the universe. The electromagnetic field extends infinitely in all directions, diminishing with distance but never truly reaching zero. In principle, every charged particle in your body is connected to every other charged particle in the universe through this field. You're not isolated, you're woven into the fabric of reality itself. Consider how this perspective might change our understanding of life and death. If you're a pattern of light, a particular organization of electromagnetic energy, then death might not be the absolute ending we imagine it to be. The pattern that is, you will eventually dissolve, yes, but the energy that comprises you cannot be created or destroyed, only transformed. The light that makes you up will continue on in other forms, perhaps scattered but not annihilated. The atoms in your body will return to the earth, perhaps nurturing new life. The heat your body generates, the infrared light you emit, radiates out into space, carrying information about you into the cosmos. The electromagnetic fields generated by your brain, weak as they are, propagate outward at the speed of light, becoming ever fainter but never entirely disappearing. In a sense, every moment of your existence creates ripples in the electromagnetic field that propagate forever through space and time. This isn't meant to be a consolation for mortality, but rather an invitation to see ourselves as part of something vastly larger and more enduring than our individual existence. If everything is light, then we are temporary patterns in an eternal dance, brief harmonies in an endless symphony of electromagnetic radiation. Our lives are meaningful not because they last forever, but because they contribute to the ongoing evolution of the universe's self-organization. The universe, in this view, is not a collection of separate objects interacting according to fixed laws, but rather a single unified field of light organizing itself into ever more complex and beautiful patterns. Galaxies, stars, planets, life, consciousness, all of these are ways that light explores its own potential, ways that electromagnetic energy discovers what it's capable of becoming. And here's perhaps the most wonderful aspect of this perspective. If consciousness emerges from patterns of light in the brain, and if the universe is fundamentally made of light, then consciousness might not be a rare or accidental phenomenon, but rather a natural expression of what light does when it organizes itself in certain ways. The universe might be inherently conscious, not in the sense of having a single, unified awareness, but in the sense that consciousness emerges wherever light organizes itself into sufficiently complex self-referential patterns. This brings us to the anthropic principle, the observation that the universe seems fine-tuned for the existence of life and consciousness. The fundamental constants of physics, including those that govern the electromagnetic interactions, are precisely calibrated to allow for the existence of atoms, stars, planets, and life. If the strength of the electromagnetic force were even slightly different, atoms couldn't form, or stars wouldn't shine, or chemistry wouldn't work the way it does. Why should the universe be so precisely calibrated for complexity? If everything is light, one possible answer is that we're observing a kind of selection effect. Only in regions of the multiverse or periods of cosmic evolution, where the electromagnetic field can organize itself into conscious observers, will there be anyone to ask this question. We find ourselves in a universe suitable for our existence because we couldn't exist anywhere else. But there's an even more intriguing possibility. What if consciousness isn't just a product of the universe's self-organization, but is somehow involved in determining the laws of physics themselves? This touches on the measurement problem in quantum mechanics, the mystery of how the act of observation causes quantum possibilities to collapse into definite outcomes. If consciousness is a fundamental feature of light organizing itself, then perhaps the universe's laws are not fixed and external, but are more like habits or tendencies that emerge from the ongoing interaction between light and awareness. This is admittedly highly speculative, but it points toward a vision of reality that is far more dynamic and participatory than the classical picture of dead matter obeying mechanical laws. If everything is light, and if consciousness emerges from light, then we are not passive observers of an external reality, but active participants in the universe's ongoing self-creation. As you lie there, perhaps feeling yourself beginning to drift towards sleep, consider the possibility that this drowsiness, this gentle descent into unconsciousness, is simply a change in the pattern of light that comprises your awareness. The electromagnetic activity in your brain is shifting from the complex, rapidly changing patterns of wakefulness to the slower, more regular patterns of sleep. You're not turning off so much as changing channels, shifting to a different mode of electromagnetic organization. And in your dreams, should they come, you'll experience worlds created entirely by patterns of light in your brain, vivid realities that exist nowhere but in the electromagnetic fields contained within your skull. Yet these dreams can feel as real as waking life, complete with colors and sounds and emotions. This is the creative power of light, organizing itself into consciousness, the ability to generate entire worlds from nothing but electromagnetic patterns. Let's explore now how this perspective aligns with what we know from different branches of science. In cosmology, we've discovered that the early universe was dominated by radiation, by light. For the first 380,000 years after the Big Bang, the universe was opaque to light because it was so hot and dense that photons couldn't travel freely. They were constantly being scattered by free electrons in a brilliant fog of light and matter. Then, as the universe cooled, electrons combined with nuclei to form neutral atoms, and suddenly the universe became transparent. The light that had been trapped was released, and it has been traveling freely ever since. We can still detect this ancient light today as the cosmic microwave background radiation, a faint glow that fills all of space, the afterglow of the Big Bang itself. This cosmic microwave background is remarkably uniform, the same temperature in all directions to an accuracy of about 1 part in 100,000. This uniformity tells us that the early universe was in thermal equilibrium, that all parts of it were in contact through the exchange of light. The entire observable universe was once connected by light in a way that it no longer is today, due to the expansion of space. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The tiny variations in the cosmic microwave background, those 1 part in 100,000 differences, these were the seeds of all structure in the universe. Slightly denser regions attracted more, matter through gravity, eventually forming the first stars and galaxies. So the large-scale structure of the universe, the cosmic web of galaxies and dark matter, all of it traces back to tiny fluctuations in the light of the early universe. In particle physics, we've discovered that the fundamental forces might not be as separate as they appear. At high enough energies, the electromagnetic force and the weak nuclear force merge into a single electroweak force. This has been confirmed experimentally in particle accelerators. At even higher energies, energies that existed only in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, it's believed that all forces except gravity were unified into a single force. This suggests that the different forces we observe today might be different aspects or phases of a single, more fundamental interaction. And since we can already unify electromagnetism with the weak force, and since there are good theoretical reasons to believe further unification is possible, It might be that all forces are ultimately different manifestations of something like a generalized electromagnetic field, a single field of light-like excitations from which everything else emerges. In quantum mechanics, we encounter the phenomenon of entanglement, where particles can be correlated in ways that seem to transcend the limits of space and time. When two particles are entangled, measuring one instantly affects the other, regardless of the distance between them. This non-local connection has been verified in countless experiments and is now being used in quantum computing and quantum cryptography. What's the mechanism behind entanglement? We don't fully understand it, but one possibility is that entangled particles remain connected through the quantum electromagnetic field, through virtual photon exchanges that aren't limited by the speed of light because they don't carry classical information. In this view, the entire universe might be entangled at the quantum level, with every particle connected to every other particle through the web of virtual photons that fills the quantum vacuum. In biology, we're discovering that living organisms are far more dependent on quantum effects than we previously thought. Photosynthesis, the process by which plants convert sunlight into chemical energy, uses quantum coherence to achieve near-perfect efficiency in energy transfer. The way proteins fold, the way enzymes catalyze reactions, even the way birds navigate using Earth's magnetic field, all of these involve quantum effects that ultimately come down to the behavior of electrons and photons, to patterns of light at the molecular scale. Even DNA, the molecule that carries genetic information, is fundamentally an electromagnetic structure. The double helix is held together by hydrogen bonds, which are electromagnetic in nature. The genetic code is read and translated through electromagnetic interactions. Mutations can be caused by high-energy photons damaging the molecular structure. Life, at its most fundamental level, is an electromagnetic phenomenon, a complex dance of light organized into self-replicating patterns. In neuroscience, we're learning that consciousness correlates with specific patterns of electromagnetic activity in the brain. Different states of consciousness, from deep sleep to focused attention to psychedelic experiences, correspond to different patterns of electrical oscillation, different ways that electromagnetic fields propagate through neural tissue. Some researchers have proposed that consciousness itself might be the subjective experience of integrated electromagnetic information in the brain. The binding problem, how the brain integrates information from different regions to create unified conscious experience, might be solved by electromagnetic field theories of consciousness. The electromagnetic field generated by neural activity extends throughout the brain and could serve as a medium for integrating information across different brain regions. In this view, your consciousness is literally a pattern of light, a complex electromagnetic field generated by and influencing the activity of billions of neurons. As we delve deeper into these scientific perspectives, we keep encountering the same theme. Phenomena that seem separate and distinct at one level of description turn out to be different aspects of electromagnetic reality at a deeper level. Matter and energy, space and time, force and field, wave and particle, all of these dualities dissolve when we look closely enough, revealing a more unified reality that might fundamentally be made of light. This brings us to the question of information. In modern physics, information has become as fundamental a concept as energy or matter. Black holes have entropy that depends on their surface area, suggesting that information is somehow encoded on their event horizons. The holographic principle suggests that all the information in a volume of space can be encoded on its boundary. Quantum mechanics is fundamentally about information, about what can be known and measured, and how is information transmitted, through light, through electromagnetic signals. Every bit of information you've ever received through your senses, except for taste and smell, which involve direct chemical contact, has come to you through electromagnetic radiation. The light entering your eyes, the sound waves that are pressure variations in electromagnetic molecular bonds reaching your ears, the heat you feel as infrared radiation, even the pressure you feel as electromagnetic repulsion between atoms. Information and light are intimately connected, perhaps even identical at some level. When we say the universe is made of information, we might equally well say it's made of light. The patterns of information that define particles, forces, and fields might be patterns in a fundamental light-like substrate, variations in some primordial electromagnetic field from which everything else emerges. Consider the concept of the Akashic field proposed by some theorists. a field that stores all information about everything that has ever happened. While this might sound mystical, it's not entirely inconsistent with physics. Every event creates electromagnetic disturbances that propagate outward at the speed of light. In principle, if you could detect and decode these incredibly faint signals, you could reconstruct information about past events. The universe might indeed have a kind of memory encoded in the electromagnetic fields that fill space. This brings us back to you, lying there, perhaps on the edge of sleep. Your thoughts, your memories, your sense of self, all of these are patterns of electromagnetic activity in your brain. But if everything is light, then these patterns are not separate from the rest of reality, but are continuous with it. The boundary between your inner experience and the outer world is not a wall but a gradual transition, a place where the electromagnetic patterns that constitute your consciousness interface with the electromagnetic patterns of your environment. When you fall asleep, these patterns will change, becoming less complex in some ways, but perhaps accessing deeper levels of electromagnetic organization. Some researchers have suggested that during sleep, especially during deep sleep, the brain's electromagnetic fields might become more coherent, more unified, allowing for processes like memory consolidation and cellular repair that are difficult during the more chaotic electromagnetic activity of waking consciousness. Dreams might be the brain's way of exploring possible electromagnetic patterns, of testing different configurations of light to see what kinds of experiences they generate. The bizarre logic of dreams, where time and space behave strangely and identities can shift and merge, might reflect the more fluid nature of electromagnetic reality when it's not constrained by sensory input from the external world. As we near the end of our journey tonight, let's consider what it would mean to live with the awareness that everything might be light. It wouldn't change the practical realities of daily life. You'd still need to eat and sleep, work and play, love and grieve. But it might add a dimension of wonder to every moment, a recognition that even the most mundane experiences are actually profound expressions of the universe's electromagnetic creativity. When you watch a sunrise, you'd see not just a beautiful sight, but a vast nuclear furnace converting matter into light, streaming electromagnetic energy across 93 million miles to warm your face and power all life on Earth. When you look at another person, you'd see not just a separate individual, but another node in the vast network of light that connects all things, another place where the universe has become conscious of itself. This perspective might also cultivate a certain peace about existence. If everything is light, then nothing is ever truly lost, only transformed. The energy that makes you up has existed since the beginning of time, and will continue until time itself ends. You're not a temporary accident in an indifferent universe, but a necessary expression of the universe's capacity for self-awareness, a place where light has organized itself in such a way that it can contemplate its own nature. The fear of death might soften when we realize that we are already part of something eternal. The light that constitutes us doesn't die, it simply reorganizes into new patterns. The specific pattern that is you will dissolve, yes, but the light itself continues, carrying something of your pattern forward into new configurations, new expressions of cosmic creativity. And perhaps most importantly, this perspective might help us recognize our deep connection to all of existence. If everything is light, then the stars are not distant objects but family, made of the same electromagnetic energy that flows through our neurons. The Earth is not a resource to be exploited but a part of ourselves, a denser region of the same light field that includes our bodies. Other people are not truly other but different perspectives of the same cosmic light show, different ways the universe experiences itself. This doesn't mean we should ignore differences or pretend that all perspectives are equally valid. The patterns matter. The specific organizations of light that create different forms and experiences are important and worth preserving. But underneath the beautiful diversity of forms there might be a fundamental unity, a single field of light expressing itself in countless ways. As you drift towards sleep, perhaps you can feel this unity, this sense of being part of something vast and luminous. Your breathing is the movement of air molecules held together by electromagnetic bonds. Your heartbeat is an electrical rhythm, a pulsing of charged ions creating electromagnetic fields. Your thoughts are cascades of light through neural networks, patterns of electromagnetic energy giving rise to subjective experience. And all of this is embedded in and continuous with the larger electromagnetic patterns of your room, your city, your planet, the solar system, the galaxy, the entire observable universe. You're not a separate being observing the universe from outside. You are the universe observing itself from within, light contemplating light in an endless recursive loop of self-awareness. The question we've explored tonight, what if light is the only thing that actually exists, remains open? Science hasn't definitively answered it, and perhaps it never will. But the possibility itself is illuminating, casting everything we experience in a new light, revealing connections and continuities we might otherwise miss. Whether or not everything is literally made of light, we know that light plays a far more fundamental role in the nature of reality than our everyday experience suggests. From the quantum fields that underlie matter to the cosmic web that structures the universe, from the chemical processes of life to the electromagnetic patterns of consciousness, light is everywhere, connecting everything, informing everything, perhaps even constituting everything. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember that you are not falling into darkness but into a different kind of light, the slow, rhythmic electromagnetic patterns of sleeping consciousness. Your dreams will be light, your rest will be light, and when you wake tomorrow, it will be to a world made of light, whether we fully recognize it or not. The photons from distant stars will continue their ancient journeys, some of them ending their billion-year voyages in your eyes. The sun will rise, flooding the world with electromagnetic energy that plants will capture and convert into the food that sustains you. Your consciousness will emerge once again from the sleeping patterns, light organizing itself into awareness, into another day of experience and wonder. Perhaps tomorrow you'll look at the world a little differently, seeing not just solid objects and empty space, but patterns of light interacting in endlessly creative ways. Perhaps you'll feel your connection to the cosmos a little more strongly, knowing that you and the stars are made of the same fundamental substance, different verses in the same cosmic song of light. Or perhaps you'll simply go about your day as usual, but with a subtle sense of wonder humming in the background, a quiet awareness that reality might be far more unified, far more miraculous than we usually imagine. Either way, the light that you are will continue its dance, participating in the universe's ongoing exploration of what's possible when electromagnetic energy organizes itself into consciousness. The question of whether light is the only thing that actually exists may never be definitively answered, but the asking of it opens doorways in our understanding, invites us to see reality from new perspectives, to recognize the profound role that electromagnetic phenomena play in every aspect of existence. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps the question itself is more valuable than any answer could be. As your consciousness now begins to shift into sleep's different patterns of light, let these ideas settle gently into your awareness, not as things to figure out or problems to solve, but as invitations to wonder, as gentle reminders of the mystery and beauty of existence. You don't need to understand it all. You don't need to have answers. You need only to rest in the awareness that you are part of something magnificent, something that might be far simpler and far more unified than we've imagined. Everything might be light. You might be light. And in that light, there is no separation, no isolation, no true ending. There is only the eternal dance of electromagnetic energy, organizing itself into temporary patterns of beauty and awareness. Patterns like you, resting now in the gentle embrace of sleep's slower rhythms. The universe continues its patient work as you rest. Photons stream through space. Electrons dance in their probability clouds. Electromagnetic fields pulse and wave through the quantum vacuum, and somewhere in all of this activity, the pattern that is you persists, held in existence by the same forces that hold galaxies together, that make stars shine, that allow consciousness to emerge from matter, or perhaps more accurately, that allow consciousness to emerge from light. This is the deep magic of reality, not supernatural but natural, not separate from physics but at the very heart of it. The same light that lets you see is the light you might be made of. The same electromagnetic forces that power your devices might be the fundamental nature of everything that exists. We live in a universe of light, whether we recognize it or not, and we ourselves might be nothing more and nothing less than light that has learned to wonder about itself. So rest now in this knowledge, this possibility, this gentle speculation that connects you to everything else that exists. Let your electromagnetic patterns slow and simplify as sleep approaches. Let the light that you are merge with the light of dreams, exploring new configurations, new possibilities, new ways of being. Tomorrow the sun will rise and its light will wake you, calling the pattern of your consciousness back to its waking configuration. But for now, rest. Let the questions we've explored tonight settle into your unconscious, where they might spark dreams of cosmic light, of universal connection, of the profound unity that might underlie all apparent separation. The boundary between waking and sleeping is just a transition between different patterns of light. The boundary between you and the universe might be equally illusory, a convenient fiction that helps us navigate daily life, but dissolves when we look deeply enough. In the end, there might be only light, organizing itself in countless ways, exploring its own potential through forms like stars and atoms, planets and people, thoughts and dreams. And you are part of this grand exploration, this cosmic experiment in consciousness and complexity. Your life, your awareness, your very existence might be the universe's way of experiencing itself subjectively, light's way of knowing what it feels like to be. This is not a small thing. This is magnificent. You are magnificent, not because of anything you've done or achieved, but simply because you exist. Because you are a place where light has become aware. As sleep finally takes you, remember this. You're not alone, you're not separate, you're not temporary in any ultimate sense. You're a pattern of light in an ocean of light, a wave in an infinite sea of electromagnetic possibility, and while, the specific pattern that is, you will eventually dissolve back into the sea, the light itself is eternal, and you are that light, temporarily focused into this particular experience, this particular moment of awareness. Rest now in this knowledge. Rest in the embrace of the electromagnetic fields that surround and comprise you. Rest in the gentle patterns of light that will carry you through sleep and into dreams. Rest in the awareness that you are part of something incomprehensibly vast and beautiful, something that might be simpler than we've imagined. Everything might be light, and yet also more profound than we can fully grasp. The stars continue their nuclear burning, converting matter into light. The galaxies continue their stately rotation, held together by forces that might ultimately be electromagnetic. The universe continues its expansion, carrying light from the beginning of time into an uncertain but luminous future. And you, a pattern of light temporarily organized into consciousness, rest within this cosmic dance, held and supported by the same forces that govern everything else. In your dreams tonight, you might fly through fields of light, swim through oceans of electromagnetic energy, dance with photons from distant stars. Or you might simply rest in dreamless sleep, your electromagnetic patterns quiet and slow, regenerating for tomorrow's adventures in consciousness. Either way, you remain part of the light, part of the fundamental substrate of reality, part of the universe's ongoing exploration of what it means to exist. What if light is the only thing that actually exists? We may never know for certain, but the possibility itself illuminates something essential about reality, about the deep unity that underlies apparent diversity, about the role of electromagnetic phenomena in creating everything we experience, and perhaps most importantly it reminds us that we are not separate from the cosmos, but are woven into its very fabric, patterns of light in a universe that might be made entirely of light. So sleep now, peaceful in this possibility, comfortable in this cosmic perspective. Let the electromagnetic patterns of your consciousness settle into their nighttime configuration. Let the light that you are rest within the light that is everything, and know that tomorrow, when you wake, it will be to a world that might be far more unified, far more wonderful than we usually realize, a world where everything, including you, might be nothing more and nothing less than light exploring its own infinite potential. The question remains open, a gentle mystery to carry with you through sleep and into dreams. What if light is the only thing that actually exists? What if you are light? What if everything is light? These are not questions that demand answers, but invitations to wonder, to see reality with fresh eyes, to recognize the profound unity that might exist beneath the surface of things. And now, as you finally drift into sleep, you can release even these questions, letting them dissolve into the gentle darkness that is itself just another form of light, the quiet electromagnetic patterns of deep rest. You are safe here in the embrace of physics itself, held by forces that have operated since the beginning of time, carried by waves of light that connect you to everything else that exists. Sleep now, light resting within light, consciousness settling into its quieter rhythms, patterns of electromagnetic energy reorganizing themselves for restoration and dreams. Tomorrow you will wake, and the dance will continue, light interacting with light in ever more beautiful and complex ways. But for now, rest. Rest in the possibility that everything is one thing, that everything is light, and that you are an integral part of this luminous whole. The universe continues its patient unfolding as you sleep. Stars are born and die, their light traveling across impossible distances. Atoms vibrate with electromagnetic energy. Consciousness emerges wherever light organizes itself into sufficient complexity. And you, sleeping now, remain part of all of this, a temporary but essential pattern in the cosmic web of light, a place where the universe has briefly become aware of itself before returning to the peaceful unconsciousness of sleep. Rest well, light being. Rest in the knowledge of your connection to everything. Rest in the possibility that all of existence might be variations on a single theme, patterns of light playing out across space and time. Rest in the gentle embrace of electromagnetic fields that hold you, compose you, are you. And let these ideas, these possibilities, these gentle speculations carry you into the deepest, most restful sleep, where even consciousness itself dissolves back into the primordial light from which it emerged. What if light is the only thing that actually exists? The question echoes softly as you fall asleep, not demanding an answer, but offering a lullaby of cosmic proportions, a gentle reminder of the unity that might underlie all existence. And in that unity, in that possibility of universal light, you find peace, connection, and rest. Sleep now, sleep deeply, sleep in the light that you are, the light that everything might be, the light that continues its eternal dance whether we're awake to witness it or not. And as you drift into sleep, you remain part of this quiet universe, wrapped in its laws, carried by its mysteries, gently, peacefully into the night. End.